Hello and welcome to Krista So Crafty. My name is Krista. If this is the first time you've been here, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. So today we're going to make a mug rug. And I thought, being as Valentine's Day was around the corner, we would have it, Valentine's Day themed. So I've got pink with hearts and then just the plain back on this. But this is what we're going to make today. I also forgot that you'll need some sort of fusible interfacing or like a light heat and bond. I'm going to use this fusible interfacing. It's just some that I have around here. The fusible interfacing is for doing your transfers. So if you use the heat and bond, it has a stick on both sides, so then you could iron it onto the here. I'm just going to use this. It's only got the glue on the one side, and then I will just put it where I want it and then put a pin in it as I sew around it. To begin with, we're going to take our batting. Now my batting is oversized and I want it that way so that once I get this all sewn together, I can trim it to size. The reason I do that is because when you're sewing, sometimes as you're sewing things together, things can kind of shift and move around. So I leave my batting a little bit bigger so that I have room and then I can trim it down after. So we're going to do what's called quilt as you go. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking my pieces of 2x6 material and I'm laid them out the way I want them. So I'm going to take the first piece and I'm going to have it face up. I'm going to take my second piece and I'm going to go face down and I'm going to lay it right on top of the other one. And I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and with a 1/4 inch stitch, I'm going to stitch down here. And what that will do is it will stitch it down together, but it'll also stitch it to our batting. So it's quilting as you're going. Now, if you want, you can do more quilting afterwards, but you don't have to. That's the nice part about this. So let's go and take this to the sewing machine. I'm just going to switch my needle over to the 1/4 inch stitch. I'm running a Janome Skyline S5 and I have the electronic panel, and so I'm just switched that over. So I'm going to line up the edge of my presser foot with the edge of this material. And I'm going to hold on to my thread and I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch all the way down. Once you're done that, if you want, you can take it over to your ironing board, but with the batting, you can just fold this over and kind of finger press it down. And the batting helps to hold everything in place like that. So now I'll take my other piece, my third piece, and I'm going to line it up again, face down on top of the other one. And I'm going to stitch down there as well. I also was doing a back stitch at the beginning and at the end. So now that these are here like this, I will bring in my side piece here, my big piece. So flatten this out as best as you can, or if you want, you can take it over to the ironing board. And I'm going to lay this down on top of this, same as we did with the strips. And I'm going to stitch down like we did before. So now I will open this up, press it down, and I will go along and I'm going to stitch down both this side and this side just to hold them in place. So make sure it's nice and flat. And then I'm not even going to do a 1/4 inch. I'm going to do maybe like an 1/8 of an inch, just enough to tack it down. And I'll do the same on this side. The beginning of our top is done. Right. So my next step now is to make our heart. And I'm going to use this bright pink. So I'm just going to grab a small little piece of this like this. And we don't need very much, so I'm just going to use my heart to kind of measure. I'm just going to cut that piece off. like that. And now I can take this over to the ironing board and I'm going to press this down onto my material. Now, if you're using a patterned material, you want to put the interfacing or the heat and bond on the back. And then we will trace this out and we can move on. Right. Let's trace this on. And now the thing with these mug rugs is, like, once you get the size down, you can pretty much make them for anything you want. I'm making these for Valentine's Day because it's coming up next month. But you could make some for St. Patrick's Day. You could make them for Christmas. Those scissors do not cut fabric very well. You could make them for any type of event you want. You could do them for a birthday. You could do them for an anniversary. All you need to do is just change out the colors, change out the design. There's so many different designs online that you can find and print out. The best thing that I have found, if you're looking for different shapes and you don't want to draw them out, go and find a child's coloring book and have a look through some of the pages, and chances are you'll find something that will work just fine. There, I think that'll look nice. So I'm going to move it over a little bit more because remember, we're going to have our binding. Just going to move that over a little bit and down like so. And I'm going to put a pin in there. And I'm just going to use white thread as I stitch around here. I'm going to use like a satin stitch to go around my heart. So to do that, I need to set my stitch. So I'm going to use a zigzag, and I'm going to change the width of the zigzag to a 3.0 and the length to a 0.3. This will give me a nice zigzag all the way around. So I'm just going to place my presser foot down and I'm just going to start sewing. And just like that, we have our heart appliqued on, and it looks so nice. So I think what I'm going to do, and I didn't do this on the other one, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some fancier stitches on down these strips here. On my sewing machine, I have all these fancy stitches. And I think, see, I have a heart. So number 50 is a heart. So I'm going to use that. And I'm going to set my machine to do this. So I'm going to change the mode to number 2, and I'm going to put in 50, 5, 0, and it changes everything now. So it's going to do the heart stitch. It automatically sets the width and the length of the stitches, and all I have to do is just start sewing now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down all of these 3 lines here, but I think this will just add another little touch. So I'm going to position my presser foot so that this sewn line here is right in the center. Put the presser foot down, and I'm just going to start sewing. There we go. So now the hearts are going sideways, but that's okay. I think it still looks pretty. And you know what? It's another extra added stitch and to hold everything together. So now we can go and trim up the top of our mug rug. All right, we'll bring this over here. And I'm just going to trim down both sides here. And I'm cutting right on that edge of the top of the material. I don't want to trim away any of the material, just the batting. Like so. As I was saying before, this is a great way to use up scraps. It's just, you know, if you're like me, you hang on to all these fairly small pieces, but they're not tiny, tiny pieces. And you think, well, one day I'll use them. Well, this is a day that you can pull them out and you can use them. So there is our mug rug, the front of it. I think it looks so good, all these little pieces. I'm going to bring in my backing. And again, I don't cut the backing either, until I have the front all done. I just don't want it to be the wrong size, because again, when you're cutting and sewing and whatnot, things can change. I'm going to trim this down so that it's exactly the same size as the front of the mug rug, so that we can start putting the binding on. Just making sure that I have that. Yes, there we go. So we can start putting the binding on, and then we're almost done. These are very quick to do. I would say less than an hour, maybe a little bit more trying to pick out your material, but for the most part, it's going to take you about an hour to make these. So I have this over here, and to keep everything where I want it, I'm going to pop in a few pins just to hold the top and the front together like that. Make sure that your backing is wrong side towards the batting. So I'm going to set that aside, and now I'm going to take and I'm going to make some bind. The first thing I need to do is attach my two strips together. And to do that, I'm just going to lay this one horizontal and do this one vertical. And I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew from this corner down to this corner. And that will give me a angled seam, which is less bulky than if we were to if you sew it together this way, which you absolutely can, all of that bulk from that seam is going to be on the front and the back. And it just makes it bulky. So I like doing it this way. So line them up. I'm just going to pop a pin in here, and we can take this and sew down there. We'll bring this in, and I'm going to start up here in this corner. And I'm going to go straight down. Now, if you want, you can draw a line, but I'm pretty confident this is just a fairly short distance that we're going. Go right down to this point. Like that. And my material got caught up on my presser foot. Now we need to trim off this piece here. Leave about 1/4 inch. And we're going to take this to the ironing board and start making our binding. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press open this seam that we just made. So it's nice and flat. And now we can start making our binding. To make the binding, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to fold it over, and I'm going to press that in half. You want the wrong sides together. We're going to do this down the whole length. So I measured this, and it's about 44 inches in length. I always start on the back side of my project, whatever it is, and you want to take the raw edge, these here, and you want to start over here. Now, if you want, you can go around and you can pin this in place like this, or you can lay it down and sew it as you go. That's what I usually like to do. So let's go over to the sewing machine and we can start sewing this down, and I will show you how I miter corners when I get to this corner. So the other thing is I don't start over here. I leave about 1.5 to 2 inches. So I'm going to start just on the other side of this pin, and I'm going to do 1/4 inch stitch. So I'm going to change my machine, and I'm going to start. I'm going to take that pin out, and I'm going to back stitch a little bit, and then I'm just going to sew all the way down, and I'll stop about 1/4 inch from the edge of the material here. So I'm going to stop about there, and I lift my presser foot and I turn my project, and I'm going to sew from where my needle is to the corner. Cut my thread, and then I will take, and I'm going to take my binding and I'm going to flip it up so that it creates a line. It lines up with this here, and it creates this fold, and I'm going to hold that in place And I'm going to bring my material back down. And I'm going to line up this folded edge with the edge of the material. And I'm going to start sewing that. This is what's going to help us create our mitered corner. So again, I'm lining up against here. I do like to do a little back stitch, and then we can just continue sewing down. Okay, so now I'm coming down to where I joined on. So I'm going to sew down just to about here, and I'm going to do a little back stitch. And I'm going to cut my thread. There's different ways of putting these little strips together. My method is to take and to put these together like this. And I'm going to run a pin down there. So I'm going to put a pin through here so that these are connected right at the material part. So now I'm going to take some scissors and I'm going to trim this down so that there's 1/4 inch right seam. I'm going to trim that off. Now I can take this to the sewing machine and I can sew these together. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to line them up like this. Now it's kind of finicky because it is, you know, we have a little bit of, don't have a whole bunch of room here. My pin's over here and get this pinned in here like this. And I will pin it over on this side. And then I will put one in the center as well. I use pins because there's just so little room here. I don't want to have it messed up. So now I can fold this over, my material over. I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to start sewing, and I'm going to use 1/4 inch stitch. And I'm going to back stitch. All the way down here. Just trying to keep everything laying flat. And a back stitch. And now when I open this up, it's going to lay down nice and flat for me. I really like that method. It's never gone wrong for me. I know, like I said, there are other methods, but this is a method I like to do. So now I'm just going to get my presser foot down here, and I'm going to do a little back stitch, and I'm going to make sure that this is all lined up, the raw edges to the raw edges, and I'm going to meet up over here where we started. Do a little back stitch, and that part is all done. So now it's going to lay down nice and smooth, and what I like to do is I like to come in here with my iron. So I'm on the back side, I'm pressing this out, and I like to press it. This just helps me when I go to lay it down, when I go to put the binding around to the front of the project. Okay, so now we can go and start sewing this down. So I'm going to poke those corners into the corner. I never start sewing on the corner. I like to start about in the middle here. So I'm taking my binding and I'm pulling it out, making sure it's out as far as it can go, and I'm just going to flop it over. And I'm going to do a straight stitch all the way around to hold that binding in place. And I'm sewing as close to the edge as I can. So I'm just going to do this. And when we get to the corner, we're going to miter these corners and make them look oh so pretty. So that's as close as I want to get, and I always like to start with this piece here, closest to me. I fold it up to where it should be, and then I take and I push this material underneath this side of the material and pull it up, and then it lines up beautifully. And we end up with a wonderful mitered corner. Lift your presser foot with your needle down and turn your work. Put your presser foot down and just continue. Just coming down to where we started. I'm going to trim off this thread. And there's the mug rug that we just made. I think it's so cute. I love the little polka dots on the back. Now, if you wanted to put a label on here before you sewed the binding all the way around, you would put your label right here. But I just think it's so cute. And you know, the best part is it's using up scraps. I think giving this as a gift to somebody would be so cute. Now you could pair it with, because this is Valentine's Day, you could go and pick up a Valentine's mug and put a few little chocolates in there. That would be such a cute little gift for somebody. If you wanted to, you could do this for different holidays. St. Patrick's Day, you could put a shamrock. You could put Christmas. You could make a snowman on here. Change up the colors, change up the backing and the batting. There's so many possibilities with these little mug rugs. I really hope you enjoyed this video today as we made a couple Valentine-inspired mug rugs. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel and click on the bell to receive notification every time I upload a new video. I upload videos on Thursdays. I am changing the time when I'm uploading them. They will be at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So I really hope you enjoyed these and happy crafting.